Let's perform a thought experiment. Imagine a man walks into your house every single day, reaches into your wallet, takes out a $20 bill, and sets it on fire right in front of you. You'd fight him. You'd call the police. You'd call him a lunatic. But millions of people are doing exactly that every single morning when they turn the key in their ignition. Here's the thing. The problem isn't cars themselves, and it's not even luxury cars. If you're a high earner who can comfortably afford a premium vehicle without sacrificing your savings rate, enjoy it. You've earned it. The problem is when someone drives the same car as a person earning 5 times their salary and finances it over 6 years to make it work. That car in your driveway, the one with the new car smell, the premium leather seats, and the monthly payment that feels like a second mortgage, might be the single greatest thief of middle-class wealth. Not because luxury is bad, but because luxury you can't afford is a trap. Today on Orven Invest, we're performing a forensic financial autopsy on car ownership. We'll look at the amortization trap, the hidden opportunity cost of your down payment, and how to know whether your car is a reasonable expense or a wealth destroyer. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly where the line is and which side of it you're on. In the world of investing, we look for assets that appreciate, things that grow in value over time. Real estate, stocks, businesses. But cars are the mathematical inverse of an investment. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses approximately 10% to 20% of its value. You haven't made it to the first traffic light, and you've already burned $5,000 or $10,000. Within 5 years, that car will be worth less than 40% of what you paid for it. This is the depreciation tax. It's a silent, invisible tax you pay for the privilege of being the first person to sit in those seats. Now, here's the nuance. For someone earning 7 times more, that depreciation tax is a rounding error, the equivalent of a coffee habit. But for the average earner, that same depreciation might represent 2 months of salary, gone before you reach the highway. The insight isn't don't buy cars, it's understand what you're actually paying relative to what you actually earn. Because cars have become so expensive, the industry had to invent a way for you to afford them. They didn't lower the prices, they just extended the chains. They gave you the 72-month or 84-month loan. When you finance a $40,000 car at a 7% interest rate over 6 years, you aren't paying $40,000. You're paying closer to $50,000. You're paying the bank $10,000 for the privilege of owning an asset that's losing $20,000 in value at the same time. This is a double-ended squeeze. You're paying interest on a disappearing value. But context matters. A doctor financing a luxury car at 3% while her investments return 10%? That's arbitrage. She's actually making money on the spread. A middle manager financing that same car at 7% with no investments? That's wealth destruction. The question isn't whether car loans are good or bad. The question is, does this loan make sense for your specific financial situation? This is where the Orven Invest math gets interesting. Let's talk about opportunity cost. Suppose you're 25 years old. You buy a nice car. Between the down payment and the monthly bill, you're committing $600 a month. If you kept that car for its entire life and immediately started another payment for the next one, which is what most people do, you're effectively spending $600 a month for your entire working life. If you took that same $600 a month and invested it in a low-cost index fund with a historically average return of around 8%, after 30 years, you could have over $850,000. Now, let me be honest about this number. It's not guaranteed. Markets fluctuate. Inflation eats into returns. Most people don't invest with perfect discipline for 30 years straight. This is a theoretical maximum, not a promise. And here's the other side. If you're already maxing out your retirement accounts, have a healthy emergency fund, and are on track for your financial goals, that $600 car payment might be perfectly reasonable. Opportunity cost only matters if you actually would have invested that money. The question isn't whether the math is exact. The question is, what else could that money do for your life given your circumstances? Most people only look at the monthly payment. I can afford $500 a month, they say. But the monthly payment is just the tip of the iceberg. According to AAA data, the average cost to own and operate a new vehicle is now over $12,000 a year. That's $1,000 a month. 1. Insurance. Premium cars mean premium premiums. 2. Maintenance. Those 19-inch tires aren't cheap. That specialized oil change isn't cheap. 3. Gas. The heavier the car, the more you pay at the pump. 4. Registration and taxes. Many states tax you based on the value of the car. When you add it all up, your modest car might be consuming 20% to 30% of your take-home pay. You could be working Monday and Tuesday every single week just to pay for the machine that gets you to work. For a high earner, $12,000 a year might be 3% of their income, totally manageable. For someone earning a quarter of that, it's 24%, a serious constraint on every other financial goal. This is the part of car ownership most people never calculate, and it's why ratios matter more than absolute numbers. Why do we do it? Why do we buy cars we can't afford? For many people, it's the status tax. We want our neighbors, our coworkers, and total strangers at the stoplight to think we're doing well. We use our car as a billboard for our ego. But here's the irony. Nobody is looking at you. They're looking at your car and imagining themselves in it. Now, I want to acknowledge something important. There's a difference between 1. A successful entrepreneur buying a Porsche because she loves driving and can afford it 10 times over. 2. A middle manager leasing a Porsche because he wants people to think he's that successful entrepreneur. The first person is enjoying the fruits of her labor. The second person is mortgaging his future for an illusion. The problem isn't nice cars. The problem is buying a lifestyle you haven't actually earned yet. The person who drives a 10-year-old Toyota and has a substantial investment portfolio is stealth wealthy. The person who drives a brand new BMW and has almost nothing in savings is flash broke. In a recession, guess who sleeps better? A car is supposed to provide mobility, but when the costs are too high relative to your income, it becomes a mobility prison. When you have a car payment that stretches your budget, you lose the ability to take risks. You can't quit a job you hate because you need the income to pay for the car that gets you to the job. You're trapped in a cycle of driving to work to pay for the car. Here's the key phrase: relative to your income. The same car payment doesn't trap someone earning 6 or 7 times more. It traps the person whose income barely covers it. The car is the same, the prison sentence is completely different. A paid-off, boring car, or a car that represents a small fraction of your income, is the ultimate freedom tool. Not because cars are bad, but because disproportionate fixed costs constrain your choices. Literally and metaphorically, the new car smell is temporary. The high you feel from a new car lasts about 3 months. After that, it's just the car. The features you were so excited about become the baseline. But the payments? The payments last for 6 years. You're paying for a memory of a feeling. This is hedonic adaptation, the psychological phenomenon where we quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, regardless of positive changes. The Orven approach is to find joy in the utility of the object, not the novelty. A car that gets you from point A to point B safely and reliably delivers 100% of the utility. Anything beyond that is a premium. And premiums are fine, if you can afford them. A wealthy car enthusiast who pays the premium consciously and happily? Great. Someone stretching their budget for a temporary dopamine hit? That's where it gets dangerous. Car companies know that the status argument doesn't work on everyone, so they use fear. They tell you that you need a 5,000-pound tank to keep your family safe. They sell you safety features that you could get in a used car for half the price. They convince you that new equals safe. In reality, modern safety standards mean that a well-maintained 5-year-old sedan with good crash test ratings can be just as safe as a brand new SUV. Now, if money isn't a constraint and you want the latest safety technology, go for it. The point isn't that you shouldn't buy new, it's that you don't have to in order to keep your family safe. And here's the deeper point. The most unsafe thing you can do for your family is to leave them with zero savings because you overspent on a car. Real safety is financial resilience. Real safety is having the money to handle a medical emergency or a job loss. How do we make smarter car decisions? Here's the Orven Invest framework. 1. The 20/4/10 rule. If you finance, put at least 20% down, finance for no more than 4 years, and keep total car costs under 10% of your gross income. If you can't hit these numbers, the car is too expensive for you right now. 2. Buy used, pay cash if it makes sense. Let someone else pay the depreciation tax. But if you're a high earner who values warranty coverage and can easily afford new, buying new isn't automatically wrong. 3. The 10-year plan. Buy a reliable vehicle and drive it long enough to get your money's worth. The most profitable years of car ownership are the years after the loan is paid off. 4. Know your number. What percentage of your income is going to your car? If it's under 10%, you're probably fine. If it's over 20%, you have a problem regardless of what you drive. These aren't rules for deprivation. They're rules for alignment, making sure your car fits your actual financial life, not the life you're pretending to have. In the 21st century, ownership is an option, not a requirement, for some people. If you live in a major city with good public transport, do the math. When you add up insurance, parking, gas, and depreciation, you might find that you can take an Uber every single day and still come out ahead financially. But let's be real, this doesn't apply everywhere. If you live in a small town, a rural area, or a city with limited public transport, a car isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And even in cities, some people simply value the convenience and flexibility of having their own vehicle. That's legitimate. The point isn't that everyone should go car-free. The point is to make the decision consciously rather than by default. We own cars out of habit. We own them because our parents did. But the Orven Invest generation questions every habit. Sometimes the answer is no car. Sometimes the answer is a modest, reliable car. Sometimes the answer is a nice car that I can genuinely afford. The point is to choose rather than drift. The world wants you to drive a car that says you've arrived. The banks want the interest. The oil companies want the gas money. The insurance companies want the premiums. They all want a piece of your labor. But on Orven Invest, we want you to actually arrive at freedom. Here's the truth. Cars aren't the enemy. Misalignment is the enemy. A successful person driving a car they love and can easily afford, that's winning. A struggling person driving that same car and drowning in payments, that's a trap. The car doesn't determine the outcome. The fit between the car and your finances determines the outcome. So here's the question. Is your car working for your life, or are you working for your car? If you're already wealthy, drive whatever makes you happy. If you're building wealth, drive whatever gets you there fastest. Because the feeling of a healthy bank account is better than the smell of a new car. Unless you can have both. I'm the Orven, and this is Orven Invest. If you're ready to take the driver's seat of your financial future, hit the subscribe button. Let's build a life where you can afford the car you actually want. See you in the next one.